Welcome to season 2 of Where Passion Meets Purpose. I'm your host, Jen Mentasana. Each week, I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and trailblazers who share their raw, real stories of perseverance, resilience, and building a life and business with impact. We talk about everything from entrepreneurship and family to purpose and living fully. My goal is to inspire you to start that dream, push through the hard seasons, and wake up every single day ready to live the life you were born to live with passion and purpose. Welcome back, everyone. I have an amazing guest today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Molly Hildebrandt. Molly is a keynote speaker. She's an executive coach, and she works with teams and individuals, corporations, and she's managed corporations all over the world. And she helps consult with neuroscience to help her clients get more in touch with their energy and their purpose so they can lead from within with more energy and power. So I am so excited to share Molly with you today and learn all about what she's doing and how she's impacting people. Oh, and she's a mother of 4, all under one roof right now, doing all of this, which is so impressive to me. So wow, Molly, just so grateful for you to be here and share all of your amazing insights and stories with our audience today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. I love that I get to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. And we met through, I think, Stage Leaders, through Jen Gottlieb's program. And I'm meeting so many amazing individuals just from all walks of life with all different backgrounds. And what I love about the people that I'm meeting through this program is how passionate we are about what we do. And everyone's in the program to become better speakers, to share their stories, to make an impact. But really, there's so much behind the scenes that we don't get to learn about. So when I have these conversations, I'm just so I love to get to know people, and my audience knows I'm like, let's get to the nitty gritty stuff, the good stuff. So yeah, so why don't you take us a little bit back to kind of your corporate experience, working, and then how that led to what you do today.
Well, it's interesting that you ask it that way. So I was in a pretty cool season of life where I thought I had it all together. I had the corporate career as head of leadership development for this global software company. I was a mother of 2 at the time. So my 2 boys, they're now 14 and 16, but they were just in the toddler, young elementary years at the time. And I was a runner, but not just any runner. I had to be a marathon runner. So I was really focused on putting on this perfectly curated mask for everyone to think that Molly had it all together. I like to say that mine was a bejeweled mask. Like we had all of the bling going on with this one, and really just trying to show up as a certain person in this world. But behind the scenes, I was really struggling, and I didn't really let anyone see that. As I go home to my suburban home on my, nice little street, if you will, is just quiet and quaint. And once I closed the garage door, what no one saw, but if walls could talk, was me dealing with this crippling imposter syndrome, me dealing with these triggers, with anxiety, with burnout, with depression, and not really having the tools to cope. Yet I'm out here leading these teams. I'm doing all this stuff in the world, and helping other people. But yet I was kind of a wreck in my personal life. And that was this issue that I was dealing with. And that's part of why I was so focused on making sure this mask was so firmly in place, is because I was hiding quite a different version of myself. And it was on this, it was a fall day. It was a really unseasonably warm day when I was out on a marathon training run. And at that time, I got to this path, and because I have to look the part, of course, I have this little matching set. I've got my little skirt set. I've got my little matching black and magenta top and my matching shoes, my running belt with my cool blue Gatorade, and my little green nano iPod with Lady Gaga and Beyonce and Black Eyed Peas, ready to just rock out on this trail. And I get out there and I start going, and I was going to do a 20-mile training run. I was going to do 10 miles out, 10 miles back. It was around mile 7 when I actually had a complete crash. I didn't know what was going on, but I ended up waking up from the ground with gravel in my palms and my shoulder. And as I'm coming to and I'm starting to realize that I just passed out on a secluded trail in the middle of nowhere by myself, 7 miles out. How am I going to get back to safety? What am I going to do? And I firmly believe that it was God that helped facilitate me getting back to safety. And when I did, and I started working through this journey with these specialists and these doctors, really trying to figure out what had happened to me, it was at that time that I realized that my brain, through all these signals it was telling me, if walls could talk, it was trying to tell me I had all of these issues, but it wasn't until my body gave out that I was willing to listen. And it was in that season of like losing my identity, essentially, because I had wrapped up everything, and as far as who I am, into Molly as a runner, Molly as a mom, Molly as an executive, all of these roles and hats that I wore. I had to start realizing that I didn't actually know who is Molly without all the titles, without all the awards or accolades or certificates. And so that really led to an identity crisis. I, at the same time, professionally, am on this international search to kind of revamp the way that I was doing things at work and the way that we were leading leadership development. And it was on this journey that I found this company that was completely different from anything I had ever experienced before. They were changing the way that we dealt with mental health, the way that we approached resilience. They had a model to actually intentionally get into flow. Like, we all know the benefits of flow and why we want to flow, but we don't actually have a way to do it intentionally, and only ever happens by accident. And I was really intrigued by this, especially at this big software company where everyone's these high achieving, performing professionals. Like, if we can get into flow and get energy while we're achieving, that sounds like a win. So I started this program to put another feather in my hat, another jewel on the mask. And I remember one of my first sessions, my coach asked me a question that I had been wrestling with internally, but I had never talked out loud. And he had asked, "Okay, Molly, who are you?" And I was like, "Okay, I got this. I know how to do this. Masked Molly. I am a runner. I am an executive. I am a mom. I'm a homeowner. I'm a former wife at the time I was going through a divorce. I'm a mother, daughter, sister, friend." Like, I just started listing off all these titles and accomplishments. And he's like, "Okay, so I hear you listing what you have. You have kids, you have this career, or what you do. You're this runner, you're this executive, but who are you?" And it was in this moment that I had to really face the internal battle that I'd been struggling with, and why crippling imposter syndrome had really just taken over. It's because I was expecting all of these accolades, certificates, and awards to validate who I was internally, but you can't use anything external to validate who you are internally. And that was this conflict that I had to resolve and realize that what I have and what I do is not who I am. And it began this whole journey of figuring out who I am. And that's what I get to do for people now, is because I went on this journey of figuring it out and diving in so deep when I saw my children have a complete transformation and go from being the playground bullies to being the classroom leaders.
Wow.
That's when I knew I'm not the only person who struggles with this. I need to go. And I went back and I got certified as a coach and as a trainer so that I could help anyone around the world experience the same transformation, get in control of their mental health, achieve mental resiliency, dissolve this imposter syndrome, dissolve these issues, have healthy, generative relationships. I knew that I could do that because I was a living, breathing example of someone who'd been in the deepest hole and now was able to get out and not just help myself, but to help my family, my children, and so many others.
Oh my gosh, your story, first of all, is very relatable to me, and so many women, I think, who listen to this show. What you're describing is not just women who have corporate identities and accolades. It's women in general, whether they have a business or they're moms and they attach themselves to that identity with volunteering and being the super mom in the classroom, and whatever it is. There is something that happens to us when we become mothers, and we start to identify by the roles we play instead of who we are inside and who God created us to be. And this is, I mean, your story is scary and all the things, but it's so relatable because this has happened to countless women, if not almost every woman that I know that's a mom. And I think even women who aren't moms who have a career and they've identified themselves by what they do for their entire lives, and then they may get to a point where in their career where they max out, and then they really don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And so this story, this imposter syndrome, all these things are so real. And what we were just talking about offline before we hit record was about this fact that until you go through what you went through and came out on the other side and taught yourself how to get through it, then you're like, wow, I need to help others who are going through this and help them. And so that's why we do the work that we do, right? And it's
100%.
such powerful stuff. And I love especially that you work with corporate teams, because I think it's so needed in corporate America. I think this is the part. I came from corporate too. I worked in the media business for 15 years. I was in the, original boys club mentality in the media business where, it was, you played the game, you had to be, the biggest badass in the room. There was no authenticity. There was no vulnerability. It was all about, and I was in the sales department. So sales and marketing, is all about who has the biggest hustle, who is the biggest badass in the room. And it wasn't real, and everybody was pretending. And it became this energy of culture that created a society of achievement versus like who you innately are and how to lead in an environment where you're actually building people up instead of tearing people down. So it's so powerful what you do. And I'm so grateful you told that story. This is like the gist of my keynote as well. So talking about identity. And yes, it is. And women who lose themselves in the roles that they play, and how it takes sometimes a physical experience like you had, because, your body, internally what's going on, but you're not willing to admit it. And it takes a physical breakdown for you to actually stop and pay attention.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's part of my mission, is that I want to help people before they have to go through that. Because I think that we're dealing with an identity epidemic right now. I think that we're dealing with this massive cultural shift where individuals, and like you said, a lot of women are uniquely going through this because we often tie our identity to all of these, roles and things like that. I think that as these moments in time shift, whether we change career paths or our children leave home, or maybe they become more independent as teenagers, we start to then question our identity. And so I'm on a mission to help as many women as possible with this. And that's why, like, everything that I talk about is through the lens of energy, because if we know who we are and we can live from that place, then we can unlock this limitless energy. If we can dissolve these contradictions, if we can dissolve these triggers and these issues that we have internally in our mind and our brain, then we can start living out of this authentic place that is so genuine, and it's dissolving this imposter syndrome, and we are just unstoppable. And this, I actually started in 2024, I started a nonprofit with a couple friends, and it's called Illuminate Inc. And it's all about helping women illuminate the light within and the path before them, dissolving these mental and emotional barriers that are holding them back from being these driving forces in their community. And it's the whole idea that we are strong and we are powerful, but it's not accolades, and it's not going to be the platitudes that call us out of that shell, that finally help us be the best version of ourselves. We actually need real practical tools to know how to do that in a healthy way that doesn't swing to the other end of the spectrum. How do we know how to intentionally find out who we are? And that's part of my mission, is to help people do that in a healthy way.
That's such a powerful mission. And I have to say, I think we talked about this in our previous conversation about how you and I kind of do the same thing, but you go about it through the approach of like practical, like neuroscience and tools that I am fascinated with. And it's something that I have yet to really study and understand. And so this is why I was like, oh yes, we have to have you on the show, because what you do and what I do are very similar. Although I go and I know that you apply spirituality and, so many aspects to what you do as well. You're a faith, driven person. I go deep into like the connection piece, the intuition piece to pull out the stories of who we've become and where that started, and go back into who we were actually born to be and why we abandoned that. And so I go through it with a different approach, but it's the similar thing. And so this is why I was so fascinated to have you on, is to learn more about this neuroscience technique that you have and how you actually help people go through this process so they can illuminate from the inside out.
Yeah. Aw. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing what you do. I think it's amazing how you facilitate your community with your perspective and your approach. I think it's so fascinating and really fun. From the neuroscience perspective, one of the big things I like to do is I start with helping people put words to who they are. So the way that I like to create this delineation is who we are as like a driver in a car, and the car is our brain. So a lot of psychology and neuroscience is focusing on the brain, on the car. There's not a model around this uniqueness element, the driver. But if you and I were both to go right now and get a 2026 Denali, and we were to show up here a year from now, your car would look completely different from my car. Why? Because who you are, how you drive your car is going to be completely different from how I drive mine, and vice versa, right? And so that's the idea, is that first step is getting down to who someone is. And I like to call that their uniqueness. So our uniqueness is primarily made up of three parts. It's your picture perspective, which is how you view the world. Do you tend to view it on more of a big picture scale, abstract thoughts and how they're connected, or more on a detailed perspective? You get energy going into the details. Then I like to look at processing perspective. How do you reach a conclusion? Are you someone who needs to talk to think, or think to talk? Because how you reach your conclusion will determine where you gain energy. And then the last portion is something I call your intangible driver. And this is all through the model of Flosis, which the company is Flosis. That's who I'm certified through. And the way I like to say it's like your unique process for flow. And so they have this model for the intangible driver that looks at two parts. Why do you do what you do? And how do you go about accomplishing that why? And so that's what I like to do. So when I work with someone, I have them start by DMing me the word uniqueness on Instagram. My handle. Can I share my handle with your followers?
Yes, please. We're going to share it in the notes. So make sure, we get it in there.
Okay. So my handle is @the Molly Hildebrandt. And if you DM me the word uniqueness, I'll go ahead and send you over the free quiz for you to take in order to determine your intangible driver. And if you throw in your email at the end, you'll get sent 2 videos that will take a deeper dive where you can really begin learning more about your uniqueness. And because I'm so absurdly passionate about helping people figure this out, because I think every person I work with, whether they are 12 or whether they're 70, is so settled learning this information because their brain knows who they are, and it's always pushing. You're always filtering everything through this lens. So to finally have words for why you do or don't do something, why something motivates you or drains you, why you're drawn towards certain people or kind of not as connecting with other people, it puts words to all of these experiences you've had your whole life and the effect that you're trying to have on the world around you. So helping people feel settled is really that first step. And I'm even creating an online course all about uniqueness for people to really take a deep dive. So if they DM me the word course, then I can add them to my mailing list to become a founding member with discounted pricing as well. But that's where I like to begin, is figuring out their uniqueness. And then
love that you mentioned, sorry, not to cut you off, but I'd love that you mentioned about how you even work with children in this. I think this is fascinating because, I went through a period of time with my younger son where we were trying to figure out, he was pretty just going through some stuff and unmotivated in school and, not socially, kind of still trying to figure things out. And he was about 9 or 10. And I said, we need to really figure out what makes this kid tick, because you can't put kids in a box and assume that every kid is going to operate the same way. And understanding who they are innately and what really motivates and drives them. It's kind of, and he was one of those kids who he'd start something and he'd get really into it. And then a few weeks in, he'd lose interest. And then he'd do that and it was kind of like, okay, we're trying to expose him to all these things, but nothing's really sticking. What is really, and some kids are just a little bit more complicated. And I think this is where it's so powerful to be able to do something like this before these kids get to a point where the world is telling them who they are. And then they're going out into the world completely lost from their connection to themselves and just trying to achieve, like we talked about in the beginning, and becoming all these things because those are the accolades that define who they are, when really that's not the case. And then they wake up one day running on a trail and pass out because they're so exhausted. And I think this is so powerful to start this with kids and maybe even early teens to really understand who they are, and it helps parents parent them better. Would you say that that's the case with the people that you work with?
100%. And that's why I say that the people I love to work with are these leaders and parents. And the reason is that you're never handed an owner's manual when you have children, yet you're expected to show up and know what to do. And you're always dealing with that internal conflict of like, oh, did the way I speak to them, did that land? Did they understand what I was trying to say? Did I speak to them too intensely? Was I too gentle? Was I enabling them? Like, you're always second guessing. And there's this whole new level of imposter syndrome around parenting. And no one really tells you the right way to do it. And I think you're right, because there is kind of a unique approach to each child. And this is something we see in our house. Like you had mentioned, we have 4 kids. And so when I tell them, okay, guys, we're having some friends come over on Saturday for dinner. We need to get the house ready. Here's the list of everything we need to do. I tell you what, if I were to leave it at that, I would have one kid pretty much push me out of the way to get to the list. I would have another one take the list and divvy it up and tell, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do that. I'd have another one say, I'm bored. I'm tired. I'm going to go take a nap. And another one who's like, well, what are we even talking about? And it's like they're all motivated differently. And try to tell me that adults aren't the same. We just push through, and some of us, not all of us, right? But that's the beauty of knowing who we are, is that we can self-motivate. And when we know our children, we can self-motivate them as well. And this is part of the thing that I learned on my journey as well, is you can't give what you don't have. So my perfect person to work with is the professional who's like, okay, this has literally happened to me yesterday. A first client, we did an intake session, and she's like, so you told me to come with 5 goals, but I've got to be honest, not one of them is professional. And I was like, perfect. That's amazing. And she's like, are you sure this is like through work? And I said, you need to understand that the individual who shows up to work with energy gives, contributes, they're engaged. The person who shows up to work without energy takes. So if we can help you show up as the best version of yourself, regardless of the context, work, home, volunteering, be the best, healthiest, most whole version of yourself, you're going to be a benefit and a value add everywhere you go. And you're going to feel incredible doing it as well. And so that's what I think is great about this, is helping the parent help the child.
Yes.
And I think that's how I can expand this reach. And that's why I do a lot of work on, like, in parent workshops. So I just recently partnered with the Boys and Girls Club and a local foundation called the Women's Fund. And what we do is we put on these 4 parts parenting workshop series where we focus on the parent's journey to mental resilience. And it's not a parenting workshop. It's a parent's resilience workshop. Because I guarantee you, most of the issues that our kids are having in the home is because they're syncing up to who? Me.
Yep.
So that's why when you have a bad day, your kids are suddenly going crazy and they're extra worse and more stressful and more difficult. Why? They're not resilient. They're syncing up to you. And if you're stressed and you're having a hard day and you're not in a good spot, guess what? They're not either. So that's that whole challenge, is that if we want to help our kids, we need to start by helping ourselves.
Oh my gosh. It's so, I'm literally, as you're speaking, I'm hearing you talk about me probably 5 or 6 years ago in a place where I was really stressed out, not in a good place, and faking it on the outside, but my kids were feeling my energy. And I knew if I didn't do something for myself, I wasn't going to be able to parent them in the way that they deserved, because even though I was physically doing the things that I thought I should be doing, I wasn't connected to myself and to my joy and to my happiness. And therefore I couldn't exude that and have them feel that energy from me. And so this is so important, parents, if you are listening, that you figure out what is the thing that is going to motivate and inspire you. Just because you're a mom doesn't mean that you get up every day with like Snow White chirping and going, "What's for breakfast?" And like, we all know that isn't real, right? And so we have our bad days, and that's normal. But when you're living in a consistent energy state, your kids are picking up on that, even if you think you're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing. And I think this is such good, powerful work that you're doing with families. And also just thinking about the corporate side, with leaders, understanding what motivates and inspires their teams so that they can lead them and pour into those gifts to help them do a better job.
100%. Because someone who shows up and understands, one, their worth and their value and how that contributes to the organization's mission and vision, they are engaged. That's literally engagement. Yes. And when you think about culture, what is culture? Like what's the definition of culture? A lot of people have a lot of different answers. The definition that I use is the momentum of mindset. Well, that means we're all syncing up to each other. So how do we raise that mindset? How do we raise that thought process so that everyone is then engaged? And that first step is getting down to who the person is so they understand that value. That's that core, that piece to that imposter syndrome and that confidence. The definition that I use is self-esteem. Confidence in your value, confidence in your uniqueness. And so it's like, how can you be confident in something you don't know, or you don't know how to do intentionally, or know how it's of value to the world, to others? And so stepping out, taking risks, stepping into bringing your value is part of that journey of growing in self-esteem. And that's part of that journey to engagement in organizations.
100%. And I would love to bring this back to what we started talking about at the beginning with moms, and just knowing that there is something more that we're meant to do outside of being a mom. And so if you understand those gifts, those talents, those things, that remember who you were born to be, then you will exude that from the inside out, as I like to say. And then you're going to do a better job in everything else that you're doing. And so a lot of these women that I work with and connect with, they've been doing the role, the steps, the tasks, the things for so long that they've forgotten about the thing that inspires them most, and what lights them up, and how they can give back to not just their children and not just their job, but the world. And that's really why we're here, is to make an impact, right? Yeah. And so it's such important work what you're doing. And I love that you're able to cross this over between families and children and teams. It's so needed in the world. And I just am in a place right now where my goal is to, kind of flip the script on how we've been raised as a society to believe that everything is about accolades, and everything is about the external, and everything is about, what you do for a living and what car you drive, and that breeds success. And yes, we all want to have nice things. Like, I'm not going to pretend that isn't something that people choose to achieve. But why are we putting so much value on that? And why aren't we looking at the people who actually are doing the work from the inside out and doing the things to make a difference in the world, to really live their authentic selves, and giving that more value?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's an interesting perspective that you bring. I really like this, because I see it as the difference between tangible and intangible. The tangible stuff, like you said, it's not wrong or bad, but it's when we place our worth in it, or our expectation of happiness from it, that we're going to get off course. Because wanting decent stuff or nice stuff is not bad or wrong. I like nice stuff, but I'm not placing my plan for happiness in stuff, right? The definition or the way that I like to explain happiness is the 4 E's. Experiencing effects that exceed our expectations. So if I can go through life and keep my expectations of myself, of others, of situations in check, then I'm going to experience happiness. So what that is again, that's partly stuff and partly not stuff. So partly tangible, partly intangible. And that comes back to knowing who you are and not putting your plan for happiness into stuff.
Right. Okay. This is exactly where we're on the same page right here. And I love it so much. So let me ask you, so if someone that's listening wanted to find out more about you, I know you shared your social media handle or how you work with families, or even, a business owner, or a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show. What is the best way to connect with you? Is it to do like an intake? Is it to do your quiz? Is it, where do you see the first kind of barrier to entry, if you will?
Yeah, I think most people casually follow me on social media as kind of a getting to know me a little bit. So that's, I think, a great first step. So on Instagram and Facebook, it's at the Molly Hildebrandt. So that's a great place to start. If they want to connect and go further, I do have the link in my bio that does take them to schedule a call, schedule a free coaching session. They can also DM me the word coach. If they do want to, I'll send them the quick calendar invite and they can find a time that works for them. If they do want to learn a little bit more, kind of go more even the speaking route, they can go to my website. It's just simply mollyhildebrandt.com. So those are some of the 2 best paths to find me, to connect with me. They're more than welcome to DM me the word uniqueness if they want to begin the process of determining their uniqueness. But it's kind of fun to meet with me first, and then we can kind of start the path there and see how I can support that journey for them.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual. Some people, I'm the kind of person who I'm like, no, let's get straight to the punch. I want to go and meet her. Let's set up a one-on-one time. Like, yeah, I might check you out for a few days, but I'm like, maybe there's something that clicked with you on this show today that you're like, I should really reach out to her. Or if you're one of those people who likes to dip their toe in a little bit, follow her, maybe DM her, get your feet wet, and just explore all the things that you do for individuals, families, businesses, entrepreneurs. It's amazing. And I want to go on and just take the quiz for fun because I love to see how these things come out. I have a similar quiz on my website, but it's definitely different in the sense of the neuroscience versus intuition piece. So I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being here, Molly. I'm so grateful to know you. And I can't wait to follow you on all the speaking engagements and things that you're doing. If there's anything that's coming up, let us know, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. And we're just so grateful you were here and got to connect with my audience. Thank you. And for all of you, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this episode beneficial. And if you feel compelled to do so, share it with a friend who might benefit too. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Reach out to me anytime on my website at jenmentasana.com.